What's up guys, we're doing something a little bit different today. This is going to be our first how-to video, and it's something that we inevitably have to do, but we figured why not share, make a video for you guys.
Alright, so our EGR cooler is completely busted, so we're going to make a sweet how-to for anybody searching for this.
Yeah, we know for a fact our EGR cooler itself is busted and it's not head gaskets, although we don't know for a fact that it's not head gaskets, we just know that it is the EGR cooler. An easy way to find that out is to pull your EGR valve and see if it's wet. And actually I got some footage of that already. As you guys can,
soaking wet.
As you guys can see, it's really gooey. And this thing is supposed to be just black carbon, completely dry. And if it's wet like ours is, your EGR cooler is definitely shot. Now the oil cooler has to go in tandem with this because that usually causes the problem. So we're going to be replacing both.
Yeah, and after we get through replacing both of those, we're going to pressure test our coolant system, and that'll verify whether or not we actually need to do the head gaskets.
And if we do have to do the head gaskets, we'll document and make a video on that too. Because you can do that with the cab on, believe it or not. So we're going to get started because this is a big job. Hope you guys enjoy.
Yeah, let's get to it.
Just so you guys know, this is filmed on location at the top of our cul-de-sac, a good 100 yards away from our house. There's no special shop or anything like that near here. You can do this at your own home.
It just sucks a lot, especially when you got to run down the hill for tools.
It sucks, but how much money do you want to save?
A lot.
Alright, well, one of the first steps is removing this coolant bottle, and what you want to look for is like a white residue, like a coolant residue that might be around the exterior of your coolant bottle, and that indicates that you might have a head gasket problem. When you have a head gasket problem, the system, your cooling system becomes very pressurized and it will blow by the PSI limit of your cooling cap, and you'll see this residue on the outside. Ours doesn't have any, so we might be doing this just in time, right before we'd start to develop head gasket problems. So hopefully that's the case. We won't know until we do some sort of pressure test to verify that we don't actually have a problem. Okay, the first thing that you're going to want to do is to remove the degas bottle. This is just a few, I think they're bolts on the top, and there's some tubes attached to the bottom. Before it can be removed, you have to take out the air filter. Up next, you're going to want to start removing intake tubes that go to the turbo, and then we're going to do the charge tube on the other side. This is just held on by a series of hose clamps. These can be crusted on and kind of difficult to remove. Luckily ours is super greasy, so it slid right out. Right here we're getting the rest of the intake hoses out of the way. We're also going to have to remove the upper radiator hose. Something that can be a little bit tricky, believe it or not, is this this fan shroud that's at the top here. You gotta be careful not to break it because it can be brittle. Right here, that upper radiator hose is coming off. This is a good time to inspect the couplers that are on the end of your intake tubes and charge tubes and everything like that. These can become brittle and dry over time, and if they crack, you'll develop a boost leak. This 90-degree elbow at the top of the intake manifold is next to come off. Right here you can get a good look inside of our intake manifold and just see how truly disgusting and wet it is in there. When we take this off later in the video, we are definitely going to have to clean it. The tensioner on the serpentine belt is kind of a pain to get to, and it requires the use of either a special tool or a combination of tools. We found that it's just easier to remove the alternator at the top here. It doesn't hurt the belt or the tensioner or the alternator, and it saves you a lot of time. Removing the turbo can be a little bit tricky. We start with removing the electrical connector, and then we move on to the oil feed and the clamps that are on both sides of the exhaust. The one on the back is a little bit tricky to get to, but with a small enough wrench you should be able to do it by hand. The turbo sits on top of a mount that's bolted down. There's 3 bolts holding the turbo, one on either side and one kind of towards the rear. Even after these exhaust clamps are completely loose, they might need to be broken free because over time they've corroded to the pipe. With all 3 mounting bolts removed, both exhaust clamps, and the oil feed line, the turbo's ready to come out. Up next, we remove the FCIM. This is held on by 4 bolts, and it has some electrical connectors on the bottom. This piece houses the oil filter and is next to come off. I forget what this tube is called, but it comes off with the removal of a single bolt at the base of it. When the bolt is removed, you can simply twist off the tube and pull it straight up. Next, we're removing the mount that the turbo was bolted to. At this point, you should have a pretty good view of the EGR cooler itself, and you can begin loosening the clamp at the very end and slide it forward. Something we forgot to show you guys is disconnecting the wiring harness and the injector harness and just pulling it forward. You don't need to completely remove it from the truck, but you have to disconnect it at all the spots that is located on the intake manifold and then just pull it forward out of the way. The last thing to do to get the intake manifold out is to take off all these small bolts that are on the outside. After all the bolts are removed, it's just a matter of breaking the intake manifold free and lifting it straight out of the truck. With that out of the way, you'll have access to the oil cooler. Just take all the bolts out around the perimeter and they should come right out. We definitely should have drained the coolant and the oil before doing this job. We just had to be a little bit more careful not to make a big mess. And we'll have to do a good job cleaning this all out after. It's also a good time to inspect all the components you took out, including the turbo. Our turbo has very little shaft play even after 140,000 miles. Alright guys, that's going to wrap this one up. There will be a part 2. We are just waiting on the EGR cooler and the oil cooler to show up in the mail, and we will make a video on installing those. Yeah, we're actually fixing up the truck to sell it because we have a lot of vehicles and it's not really necessary for us where we live now. And we're looking to put some of those funds towards finishing the Porsche build. Yeah, we'll use the money from the truck to finish the Porsche and begin suspension and the wide body kit on the 240Z. So this is actually the next step unofficially in both builds, and we thought it was a good opportunity to make a how-to video because apparently it's a common problem with these 6 liters. But that's going to wrap this one up, and Devin's going to go ahead and pick a winner for this video's giveaway. If you're new here and unfamiliar with the channel, we give away products from boostedshades.com every single video. Instructions how to win at the end. Alright, this video's winner is Antonio Stovall. Alright, Antonio, you can hit us up at Teamboosted at boostedshades.com or through any of our social media platforms. We will get back to you and ship you your prize. To win the video giveaways, all you have to do is like the video if you actually liked it, subscribe to the channel, and sometimes we have a question for you guys, sometimes we don't. This is going to be one of those cases. Just leave a comment and you're eligible to win. As always guys, thanks for watching. We'll see you next time.